Hey, it's Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and welcome to the Black Belt Leadership Podcast, where each week I'm giving you tips, tools, insights, and resources to help you become a better version of who you are and what you do as you discover, develop, and deploy your own Black Belt leader within. This week, I want to answer the question, and really more than answer the question, I want you to answer the question, what do you see? Now, I want to start by going back in time and maybe dating myself a little bit, but I want to go back to the 1970s and the TV classic Kung Fu. David Carradine was the star. He was a half American, half Chinese immigrant who had come to the United States, having been orphaned as a child and raised by Chinese monks. Now, one of my favorite characters in that TV series was Master Po. He was played by Key Luke. Now, Master Po, if you've not seen the TV series, which I think you can find on one of the streaming channels, Master Po was a blind monk who possessed extraordinary talent, not just as a master of Kung Fu, but he gave extraordinary talent to life. He was a philosopher and a mentor, and he helped his young protege, Kwai Chang Caine, see things he otherwise couldn't see. You know, one of my favorite moments was early on in the TV series when Master Po and young Kwai Chang Caine first met. Kwai Chang Caine was sweeping with a broom, and Master Po heard him sweeping and called him to his side and introduced himself as Master Po and recognized that this was the new student. It was at that point Kwai Chang noticed that Master Po was blind. He made an interesting comment when he observed this blind monk. The young man said, "Of all things, living in darkness must be the worst." Master Po smiled, and then he challenged this young student of martial arts to strike him with a broom. Again and again, Kwai Chang tried, but again and again, Master Po caught the broom and threw the young boy here, there, and everywhere across the grounds. And then after the boy got up several times, the master smiled as he always did with this beaming, beautiful smile, and he shared the first of many life lessons with young Kwai Chang Caine. And this is what he said: "Never assume that because a man has no eyes, that he cannot see." Now, there's great truth in that statement, and I want to dive into that today. Now, Master Po then went on after that powerful statement, and he challenged his young pupil to close his eyes, and he asked what he could hear. Kwai Chang paused for a moment, and he replied that he could hear the rustling of the water and the singing of the birds. Master Po then asked him, "Can you hear the beating of your own heart?" Standing quiet for a few moments and listening intently, Kwai Chang shook his head. He said no. Now, the next question that Master Po asks gets to the heart of this week's teaching. Master Po then asked young Kwai Chang Caine if he could hear the grasshopper at his feet. The young boy, to his surprise, opened his eyes and looked to the ground to see a grasshopper rubbing its legs together before flying away. Kwai Chang Caine then turned and looked at Master Po, and he said, "Oh man, how is it that you can hear these things?" Master Po's timeless reply, "Young man, how is it that you cannot?" Now, for those of you like me who truly are fans of the TV series, this is how Kwai Chang Caine got his nickname, Grasshopper, from Master Po. And throughout their relationship together during the TV series, he was never referred to as Kwai Chang or Master Caine. It was always Grasshopper. And also throughout the series, Master Po taught the young apprentice not just some excellent martial arts, but he taught him to see what other people couldn't see. And that leads me into today's lesson. For the next few moments, allow me to be your Master Po. Let me start with the question. What do you see? But more importantly, what do you see that you should be seeing? Let me ask that again. What do you see? But more importantly, what do you not see that you should be seeing? Now, I've been rereading Napoleon Hill's 1928 original version of The Laws of Success, 1,170 pages. This is an exhaustive treatise on 20 years of study that Napoleon Hill went on at the bequest of Andrew Carnegie to interview 500 of the most successful men in the United States and parts of the world, and to identify what were the laws they practiced that made them successful. Now, in this book, The Laws of Success, Napoleon Hill spends quite a bit of time on the subject of thinking, accurate thinking to be more particular. Now, a few years later, out of The Laws of Success came his best-selling book, Think and Grow Rich, where he took this thought idea of processing thoughts and how we think determines how we live and experience life. He took it in the book, Think and Grow Rich, to an entirely different level. Now, you may not be willing to work through a 1,000 plus page treatise, The Laws of Success, but if you haven't, I would encourage you to read Think and Grow Rich. And if it's been a while since you've read it, I'd encourage you to get it out and read it again. It's one of those books I try to read at least once a year. Now, Napoleon Hill, in this book, The Laws of Success, which was originally a series of books, what does he do in this? He builds in part upon the teachings of Socrates, Solomon, and other wise philosophers throughout history. And he reminds us that everything that exists in the world first existed as a thought. Now, think about that. Everything that exists on this planet first existed as a thought. Now, his success philosophy that he taught in The Laws of Success and in Think and Grow Rich and in The Science of Personal Achievement, the many books that Hill authored, he focused on building this premise. Our thoughts and our beliefs shape our reality. That's really the summary of Napoleon Hill's teachings. And understanding that if our thoughts and our beliefs shape our reality, we need to pay attention to what we think and what we believe. Napoleon Hill goes on in his many, many books and writings, as do other incredible authors like Stephen Covey, and they point out the fact that if we develop a winning mindset, we can overcome self-doubt, we can conquer our fears, and eventually we can unlock our full potential. And as I share in my book, Black Belt Secrets of Success, we can discover what are the success secrets that other individuals throughout history have employed that we too can employ to be more successful than we are right now. Now, one of my favorite quotes out of Napoleon Hill's many is this: whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. That is a powerful statement. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. There's two parts to that. First, the mind has to conceive a thought or an idea, and then they have to believe it is possible. And only then, once they conceive it and believe it, can they achieve it. Now, I believe this is a true statement, so much so that in my book, Black Belt Leadership, I devote an entire chapter to the idea of belief. Why? Because if you cannot believe it, you cannot achieve it. You know, if you study successful men and women throughout history, you'll find this to be true. They believed Napoleon Hill's statement, and it brought them success. Now, again, in my book, Black Belt Leadership 101, I devote an entire chapter to the topic of belief. Because without belief, you cannot successfully implement the other 9 leadership character qualities that I teach in that book to become a black belt leader. By the way, as a side note, at the time of this recording, I just got notified earlier today that my book, Black Belt Leadership 101, was just named to the LA Tribune's critically acclaimed bestseller list. Now, that to me is a great accomplishment, and it came as a surprise, but it validates what I'm sharing has merit. So let me get back to the teaching. Again, without belief, you cannot successfully implement what it means to be successful in life. Now, why is that so? It goes back to the main premise of that chapter, chapter 2 in my book, Black Belt Leadership 101. You cannot achieve what you do not believe. But how many of us, how many of you and I go through life not clearly understanding what we believe and why we believe it? Now, why is that important? Here's why. You cannot become a world-class master of who you are and what you do if you don't know what you believe and you don't know why you believe what you believe. Because without that inward conviction that who you are and what you've been called to do and why you've been called to do it, guess what? You can't lead yourself. If you don't know who you are, what you've been called to do, and why you've been called to do it, you're not really going to have the opportunity to accomplish anything worthwhile in life. So let me pose the question I opened with. What do you see? But more importantly, what do you not see that you should be seeing? Now, if you've been a fan of this podcast and you've listened to it for any time, you'll know I say often, as you think, you become. Now, this is important to understand, and it is a fact of black belt leadership that as you think, you become, because your thoughts shape your beliefs. Your beliefs drive your behaviors. Your behaviors are going to dictate your actions, and your actions are going to dictate your outcomes in life. I like to say it to my kids this way. Life is a series of choices and consequences. You and I, we get to choose our choices every single day, and the consequences or the outcomes of our life happen as a result of the choices that you and I are making. So if you don't like your outcomes, you don't like the consequences of life you're experiencing, you got to change your choices. But you can't change your choices until you go back and first change your thoughts and the beliefs that support it, because your thoughts shape your beliefs drive your behaviors drive your actions, aka your choices, and your actions, your choices determine the outcomes in life you're going to experience. So unless and until you're willing to think for a change, you're simply going to go mindlessly through life, accepting whatever it is that life wants to give you, good, bad, or otherwise. Now, I can tell you for a fact, this is not how black belt leaders achieve success. Now, let's go back to the laws of success. Napoleon Hill, in this treatise, this exhaustive study of the laws of success, he spends a lot of time talking about what he calls your chief definite aim in life. He's referring to whatever you've focused on as your primary goal, your primary outcome, or your primary objective in life. I call this your one thing. What is the one thing that you're focusing on you want to be better at saying, doing, or becoming? That is your chief definite aim. Now, by focusing intently on your goal, your outcome, or your objective, what are you doing? You're visualizing it in your mind's eye, and you're holding on to that image, seeing it as already completed. When you do that and you focus intently and you hold that image, you can and you will achieve that in the future. Now, Stephen Covey, in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, he refers to this same philosophy in his chapter, starting with the end in mind. Now, visualization is an essential element in mastering the martial arts. Again, you've got to be able to see your assailant when you're training. Otherwise, you're simply going through the motions. You're learning to punch, to block, to kick, to move, and you're simply going through motions like a dance until you visualize an assailant, an attacker coming at you to harm you in some way. And when you can see that individual coming at you, all of a sudden your punches, your blocks, your kicks, and your movements take on an entirely different element in your training. You begin to move as if your life depended on it, because in your visualization, it does. And here's what I can tell you, and something we told our students often as we were training them in martial arts for well over a decade. If you wait until you're 100% confident of what your opponent's going to do next, it's too late. He or she already has the advantage in the fight. So you've got to learn to visualize in advance what you believe your opponent is going to do so you can take action to stop that attack from even happening in the first place. That is part of martial arts training, but we can actually take that same visualization concept and we can apply it to the life we're living right now. Now, what do I mean by that? Before you can achieve it, whatever it means to you, you first have to visualize it. You have to see it. You've got to believe that your it, whatever your it is achievable. And you've got to believe that you can achieve it, whatever it is. If it's saying, if it's doing, or if it's becoming more, you've got to first see it. You got to believe it, and only then can you achieve it? Can you see how we're going right back to the principle that Napoleon Hill wrote in his book in 1929? Exactly. But understand this. All this I'm talking about, you got to see it, believe it to achieve it. All of this starts with a thought. But here's the problem. Many of us go through life thinking, but we're not really thinking. We're just letting our mind wander and ramble as it goes through life. And as a result, we wander through life wishing, hoping, and praying for this or that. We cross our fingers and we say, boy, I sure hope this could happen, or maybe one day this will happen. That is not a definite chief aim. That is not a one thing, because a wish without a plan is only a dream. We've heard that said for years, and I can tell you it's true. Dreams don't come true without a plan. And not only do you have to have a plan to achieve that dream, whatever it is, there's got to be action steps behind the plan. You got to implement the plan for the plan to happen. You can have the greatest thoughts in the world and the greatest plans in the world, but until you put them into action, nothing happens. When you put action to your thoughts, your brain and your body goes to work to bring that vision of whatever it is into its physical representation in the earth. So I want you to think about it this way. Everything that has ever been created or accomplished begins with a thought. All throughout history, everything created, everything accomplished began in the thought of someone. So if you want to achieve great things, what do you have to do? You've got to start thinking great thoughts. So here's the question you may be asking. Okay, John, that's great. But how do I get to thinking great thoughts? I'm stuck where I am right now, and I don't know what to do to get me from where I am to where I want to be. Well, I'm glad you asked. Let me give you an answer to that question. Understand this. You cannot outperform your thinking, because as you think, you become. So what does that mean? If you're thinking small thoughts, you're living a small life. If you're thinking thoughts of scarcity and lack, that's going to become your reality. To achieve a better quality of life, you've got to up-level the quality of your thinking, because as you think, you become. That's why I believe personal growth is so important. That's why every morning when I get up, I read personal growth books. I read inspiration, education, intellectual information, factual information, so I can constantly learning from other successful people through their successes and failures to add to my collective knowledge. And then I go through a process of applying what I've learned so that every day I can become a little bit better than I was the day before. I put my thinking into that uncomfortable place where growth happens as I try to stretch my thinking to think a little bit bigger every single day. Why? Because as I think, I become. And once I stop thinking, I stop becoming. So I want to make sure I'm thinking bigger thoughts every day so I can continue to have bigger opportunities before me. And you can do the same thing too. It starts with thinking. And what is thinking? Thinking is seeing with your mind's eye. The internal part of our brain is an amazing instrument that is tooled to do one thing, to bring our thoughts to their physical representation in the earth. Now, it's having a clear, concise vision of what you want to say or do or become. That's where it starts. You've got to get crystal clear in your mind's eye, seeing exactly what it is you want to say better, do better, or the better version of yourself that you want to become. Because if you don't see it clearly, your vision lacks definition. And if you can't see it clearly, your mind doesn't understand exactly what it is you want to achieve, and it's going to struggle to help you achieve that. Remember, you can't reproduce what you don't clearly see. So it's important at the onset, if you want to up-level the quality of your thinking, that you create a clear, concise vision of your future. What is it you want to say, do, or become that you're not saying, doing, or becoming right now? I want to encourage you at the end of this podcast to sit down and take some time to write out exactly what that looks like. Put it down on paper. This is what I want to say better. This is what I want to do better, or this is what I want to become, and write that out as a mission statement. Put it on a sticky note and stick it on your bathroom mirror. So every day when you get up, you got to see that sticky note and remind yourself, this is what I'm learning to say better. This is what I'm learning to do better. This is what I am becoming, so that you know exactly where you want your mind to take you. So when you look in your mind's eye, what is it that you see? But more importantly, when you look into your mind's eye, what is it you don't see that you should be seeing? Now, I mentioned a minute ago that our brain is incredible, and the internal part of our brain, our subconscious mind, is incredibly powerful. It never sleeps. But here's something you may not know about your subconscious mind. It is nonverbal. It doesn't understand words. Our subconscious mind sees in pictures. The more clearly our subconscious mind can see the image of what it is we want to say, do, or become, or some objective or goal that we want to reach, the better our subconscious mind can work to make that come to pass. Again, remember, our subconscious mind never sleeps. So even when our physical body is asleep and our conscious mind is resting, our subconscious mind is still working on ideas and looking for resources and strategizing. How do I bring this vision to pass? What it is that you have put before your subconscious mind as a vision of your future success, it's going to be working on 24/7. Now, one of the primary responsibilities of our subconscious mind is to tirelessly work to bring to life the image we set before it. So when your mind's eye sees your vision for the future, what does it see? That's an interesting question. When you see in your mind what you want to accomplish, what is it? What does your mind's eye see based upon what you are thinking? Does it see success or does it see failure? Does it see scarcity or does it see abundance? Does it see sickness or does it see health? Does it see all the reasons you can't or does it see all the reasons you can? Does it see poverty or does it see wealth? Because whatever you are thinking on, your brain is working to bring that into its physical representation into the earth. If you're thinking success, over time, that's what you're going to experience. But if you're thinking failure, that's what you're going to experience in your life. Whatever you're thinking is what your brain is going to be working on tirelessly to create. Because as you think, you become. Now, lest you think I'm just off the deep end today, let's go back in time and let's look at some people who understood this principle. Here's some names you might know. Alexander the Great envisioned the conquest of the known world before he ever left Macedonia. Thomas Edison envisioned the incandescent light bulb before he went through 10,000 failed attempts to create light inside of a glass tube. Madame Curie envisioned the X-ray machine when she began to understand and believe that radium was more than just some odd element that was a byproduct of uranium. Gene Roddenberry invented and envisioned this incredible wagon train to the stars that became the Star Trek series. Bill Gates envisioned the Windows operating system that today is the mainstay of many PCs around the world. Stephen Jobs envisioned the iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad. He saw those in his mind before he ever physically held those instruments. Mark Zuckerberg envisioned Facebook before it ever showed up on the internet. Jamie Kern Lima envisioned a line of cosmetic products for ordinary people that would make them look beautiful. And out of that came It Cosmetics that she later sold for more than $1 billion. Remember, what each and every one of these individuals they achieved, and they achieved some great things, they first saw in their mind's eye. Because as they thought, they became. As they got a clear vision of their future and they held on to that vision until it came to pass, it came to pass. And the same is true for you. As you think, you become. And as you get a clear vision of what your future is going to become, your mind is going to work tirelessly to bring that to fruition in your life. So let's get ready to wrap up this week's teaching. And I want to go back to the Kung Fu TV series and Master Po's conversation with young Kwai Chang Caine. Remember, Master Po instructed Grasshopper to close his eyes, and he asked, "What do you hear?" The young man replied, "I can hear the rustling of the water, and I can hear the singing of the birds." When he was asked if he could hear his heart beating, he paused and he replied, "No." And then Master Po asked young Kwai Chang Caine, "Can you hear the grasshopper rubbing his legs at your feet?" And when the young man looked down, to his surprise, there was a grasshopper rubbing its legs. What did the young man say? He said, "Oh man, how is it that you can hear these things?" Master Po's timeless reply, "Young man, how is it that you can't?" So let me pose the same question to you. What is it that you see? More importantly, what is it that you don't see that you should be seeing? Remember, as you think, you become. Pay close attention to what you're thinking. I'm Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.